At a team dinner, my coworker raised her glass and said, "To the real brains behind the project, Eric, I built that project." So I stood up, pulled out a flash drive, and played a time lapse of me writing every line of code over 6 months. Her smile dropped. Eric didn't say a word. And HR asked me to stay after work Monday. I work in software, mostly back-end stuff. I've never been the kind of person who pushes for attention or credit. I do my job, I keep my head down, and I try not to cause problems. I don't hang out in the break room. I don't go to happy hours. I'm not popular. That's never mattered to me. What matters is the work. About 8 months ago, our team had this internal tool that was breaking constantly. It was old, badly designed, and had gone through so many different hands that no one wanted to touch it anymore. It was like trying to fix a collapsed house with a broom and duct tape. Everyone kept patching it up just enough to keep it from falling over, but nobody really fixed it. Every sprint, the ticket for fixing that system would come up, and every sprint, it would get moved again. I was tired of watching it happen. I'd been at the company for 3 years and still hadn't gotten any serious recognition. I figured maybe if I took that on and actually got it to work, people would finally see me differently. So I volunteered. Nobody argued. Honestly, I think they were just relieved someone else was dumb enough to take it. What followed were probably the hardest 6 months of my career. The codebase was garbage. Nothing was documented. The APIs were barely holding together. Every time I fixed one part, another broke. I worked late almost every night. Sometimes I wouldn't leave the office until 10 or 11. Other times I'd log in from home and code through the weekend. I started recording my screen after the second week, not for proof or anything, just so I could retrace my steps when I got stuck. No one helped. No one asked if I was doing okay. My manager barely checked in. The only person who ever showed up in the Jira comments was Eric, and even then, all he did was drop useless feedback like make this more scalable or optimize this. He never committed a single file to the repo. Not one. Still, I kept going. I built out the whole backend from scratch. I rewrote the architecture so it was stable. I made it run faster. I cleaned up the entire mess. By the time I pushed the final build, the system was solid. It passed QA without a single blocker. The testers were shocked. The people using it started emailing our team, saying it actually worked. For once, we weren't getting daily bug reports. Even the VP sent a company-wide email calling it a game changer. That was the only time I saw my name in writing, just once, in a bullet point. Then came the team dinner. It was supposed to be a casual celebration, but they went all out. Big steakhouse, private room, name cards, waiters with trays. I almost didn't go. I hate that stuff. But I thought, okay, maybe this is finally the moment. Maybe they'll say something. Even just a quiet good job. I showed up early. Most people came late. I sat near the end of the table, near Maya and Eric. Maya is one of those people who always knows how to play the game. She's sharp, put together, always talking to the right people. People like her. She floats between teams even though she's technically not on ours. Eric, on the other hand, is all talk, loud in meetings, always offering big picture ideas, never doing the hard parts. About 2 hours in, everyone had a few drinks in them, and the mood was light. Our director gave a short toast thanking the team and all the hard work. That was it. No names. I figured that was the end of it. Then Maya stood up. She held her wine glass and smiled and said, "Let's raise a glass to the real brains behind the project, Eric." People clapped. Some laughed. Eric raised his glass and did that smug little nod. And I just sat there. I felt sick. My stomach turned. I looked around, waiting for someone to correct her. No one did. I opened my mouth and closed it again. I just stared at the table. I don't know what snapped in me, but suddenly I remembered the flash drive in my bag. The week before, I'd stitched together all my screen recordings into a time lapse. It showed me day by day, night after night, writing code, fixing bugs, building piece after piece. I didn't make it to prove anything. I just wanted to have something to look back on, like a personal record. I stood up, walked to my bag, and pulled it out. No one noticed at first. The restaurant had a laptop plugged into the projector. They'd used it earlier to show a company slideshow. I walked over, plugged in the USB, and opened the file. Then I clicked play. At first, people didn't know what they were looking at, just code on a screen. But then they saw the dates changing in the corner. They saw the cursor typing, scrolling, deleting. They saw the same name in the commit logs over and over. Mine, they saw my face now, and then when the webcam popped up, tired, focused, alone, 12 full minutes. No one spoke. Maya was frozen. Her smile disappeared about a minute in. Eric was staring at the table. One guy across from me actually whispered, "Holy sh**T." When it ended, I unplugged the drive and walked back to my seat. Nobody clapped. Nobody said anything. The dinner ended awkwardly. People left early. Some wouldn't meet my eyes. Maya didn't say a word. On Monday morning, I had an email from HR. No subject line. Just, "Please stay after work today. We'd like to talk." That was 2 weeks ago. There's more. So much more. But I'll stop here unless you want to rest. That Monday, I stayed after work, just like the email said. The HR manager, Lila, was waiting for me in a small glass meeting room. She was polite, overly calm in that way HR people always are. But the second I sat down, I could tell where it was headed. She didn't even ask how I was doing. Instead, she opened with, "Several employees were uncomfortable with your actions during the dinner event." I stared at her. I asked her what that meant. She didn't answer directly. She just said it wasn't an appropriate time or place for that kind of demonstration, that it could be perceived as confrontational or aggressive, that it undermined team morale. Team morale. That word hit hard. I kept thinking, what about my morale? What about 6 months of my life, erased in a single toast? She asked me if I had felt unsupported by the team. I said yes. She nodded, wrote it down. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "There's been a formal complaint submitted by Maya." I blinked. About what? She stated that you publicly humiliated her and that your behavior created a hostile environment. I couldn't believe it. I asked if Eric submitted one too. She said no. He hadn't said anything. But Maya's complaint was being taken seriously. Because technically I'd used company equipment, the restaurant's laptop was provided by IT to display unauthorized personal content. They didn't fire me, but they gave me a formal write-up. It went into my file. Lila said I'd be expected to maintain professional boundaries moving forward. That was her way of saying, stay quiet, don't cause trouble. After that, things got worse. Maya avoided me completely, but I'd catch her whispering with other people. Eric acted like nothing happened. He even invited me to a meeting the next week, like everything was normal. He smiled too much. I could tell he was trying to stay neutral, to make himself look clean. Other coworkers started pulling away. People who used to nod at me in the hallway stopped looking at me. I wasn't invited to meetings I used to attend. I found out secondhand that Maya was now consulting on another internal tool, one I had written half the backend for just 2 months earlier. Her name was all over the internal wiki pages now. Mine had been quietly removed. A manager I'd worked with closely stopped assigning me anything technical. I was given documentation work, bug tracking, even QA tasks. I asked him about it. He told me they were rotating responsibilities. My work was being taken from me. I tried to keep my head down again, just get through the day. But even when I did nothing, more things started slipping. One week, I got a surprise performance review. It said my collaboration had declined. My attitude was inconsistent. My team contribution was unclear. The same month, Eric was nominated for an internal award. They gave it to him at the next all hands. He smiled while holding the little plaque. Maya clapped the loudest. I sat in the back of the room, staring at my hands. I went home that night and opened the time-lapse again. I watched all 12 minutes alone, just to remind myself it had really happened, that I wasn't crazy, that I had done the work, that I'd built every piece of it. I made a backup of the video. Then I made another one, and another. I uploaded it to multiple clouds. I saved it under different names. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew I wasn't going to let it end like that. I just needed to be patient. Wait, let them think I gave up. Let them feel safe. Then, I'd start. About a month after Eric got the award, our company announced a new internal audit initiative, something to do with transparency, documentation, and better tracking of project contributions. It was being driven by one of the VPs from another office who'd recently transferred in. He wanted to modernize things. At first, no one took it seriously. People shrugged it off. Maya even joked that it was just management's way of pretending they care, but I paid attention. Quietly. Then I noticed something strange. A week into the audit, I got pinged on Slack by someone I didn't know. Jenna, from Internal Systems. She asked if I could confirm some old version histories of the project I worked on. I said sure. She sent me a link to the logs and commit history, the official ones stored in our company's version control. I clicked it, and that's when I realized someone had edited the metadata. My name was missing from half the commits. Not just erased, replaced. Eric's name was on them. He had backdated entries, real ones from key milestones of the project that I knew I wrote. Not just comments or messages, full commits, full modules, the kind that couldn't be faked easily without admin access, which meant someone had helped him. I didn't reply to Jenna. Instead, I pulled up my local backups, including all the original Git logs with timestamps and session info. Then I opened the time-lapse. Every file, every date, every line of code matched my recordings. I had full, visual proof. Undeniable. I didn't send it in yet. First, I started digging. I went into our internal tools and started mapping out the admin users who had access to edit project history. It was a short list, 6 names. Eric wasn't on it, but Maya was. She was listed as a temporary project lead from back when I was midway through development. It had been logged, quietly, no announcement, just a buried entry in the change history. It started to make sense. She didn't just lie at the dinner. She helped forge the record of who built the project. She had erased me on purpose, and Eric was part of it. I didn't go to HR. Not this time. I didn't trust them. I didn't forget what they did after the dinner. Instead, I copied everything, all the logs, all the tampered metadata, my recordings and the original commits, and uploaded it to a private encrypted drive. Then I created a detailed changelog matching every edit they made to the repo with the video of me doing the real work. I dated everything. I didn't release it. Not yet. I waited, because something else happened. The new VP, the one who started the audit, he was scheduled to do a company-wide review presentation. Open forum, public Q&A. Every department head would be there, including Maya and Eric. And they asked me specifically to present a brief overview of the development process behind the tool I built, the one Eric got the award for. Apparently, someone higher up had noticed my name after Jenna flagged the inconsistencies in the code history. Quietly, behind the scenes, no one told me until they invited me to speak. Maya didn't look at me the whole week before the presentation. Eric tried to be friendly again. He even offered to co-present. I said no. Then I got a second anonymous message. Not from Jenna. This one said, "Watch your version logs. They're editing again." That night, I checked the repo. More changes. More fake commits. This time, someone had gone in and marked my original commits as reviewed and co-authored by Maya. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. So I added a new section to my presentation. Something visual, 12 minutes long. And this time, I wouldn't stop at showing them what I built. I was going to show them everything. The day of the presentation came faster than I expected. It was a Friday. They scheduled it for 3 p.m., last thing before the weekend. Most of the company logged in over Zoom, but our team and leadership were in one of the big conference rooms on the 7th floor. I showed up 10 minutes early. My hands were shaking, but I kept my head down. Eric was already there, talking to someone from finance like nothing was wrong. Maya came in 2 minutes late, dressed sharp, smiling fake. She nodded at me once. Didn't speak. I kept my laptop closed, I didn't want them seeing what I had ready. The new VP, Thomas, introduced the meeting. He was tall, clean-cut, all business. He welcomed everyone, said the audit was still ongoing, but that today's focus was highlighting great work from internal innovation. Then he called my name, just mine. No Maya, no Eric. I walked to the front of the room. The projector flicked on. I opened my laptop, connected it to the HDMI, and started my slides. The first few minutes were clean. I walked through the rebuild, backend changes, refactoring, test automation, deployment stages. All the boring stuff. Technical, safe. They nodded along. Then I stopped. I looked at Thomas and asked, "Can I play a short clip to show the development timeline?" He said yes. I opened the time-lapse, the same one I'd shown at the dinner. But this time, I added time stamps, terminal logs, and live overlays showing commit hashes syncing with my screen. As the code played, I narrated what I was doing, showing actual moments where I solved key blockers, explained decisions, and matched them to production logs and ticket IDs. 12 minutes. Silent room. When it ended, I turned to the room and said, "Every commit shown here matches the original repo before it was altered." People looked up, confused. I continued, slowly. After deployment, the repo metadata was changed. Commits were reassigned. Co-author tags were added to work that was never touched by those people. Then I brought up a side-by-side screen showing the original Git logs versus the current edited ones. I didn't say their names. I didn't have to. The screen showed Eric D. and Maya R. tagged on code they never wrote. Dates mismatched, sessions inconsistent. Authored by fields injected months after the fact. Maya spoke first. Her voice cracked. "This isn't appropriate." Thomas held up a hand. "Quiet." I kept going. I brought up a screen showing access logs. Only 5 people had admin access to the repo when the edits were made. I circled the name, Maya R. Then I pulled up the award announcement from the previous month. The one praising Eric for the project's success. I didn't say anything. Thomas did. He asked if I could provide copies of all logs and proof shown. I said yes. I had already printed a hard copy for him. I handed it over. Maya stood up and said she needed to step out. No one stopped her. Eric looked pale. I finished the presentation. Thanked everyone. Closed my laptop. Walked back to my desk. No one said a word to me for the rest of the day. But that night at 9:42 p.m., I got an email from Thomas. Subject line, "We need to speak Monday morning." Privately, and attached to it, a forwarded message. From legal. I didn't sleep that weekend. I kept going over everything in my head. What I showed, what I didn't, what Thomas saw, what legal might ask. I barely ate. I kept checking my email. Nothing else came. Monday, 8:58 a.m., I stood outside Thomas's office. He opened the door and said, "Come in. Close it." He didn't ask how I was. He didn't offer coffee. He had a folder on the table, thick with printed pages. I recognized the layout. My logs. My side-by-sides. The commits. My face on the still image from the time-lapse. He sat down and said, "We believe you." That was the first sentence. Then he explained. After Friday's meeting, they'd opened an internal investigation. Legal pulled the access logs from the server. They confirmed that Maya used her elevated permissions to modify the version history twice. First to remove my name from key commits, then again to add co-author tags for her and Eric. It was done over 3 separate sessions, late at night. They also found that Eric submitted a summary report to upper management 3 months ago, claiming he had overseen the majority of the rebuild. He had included copied documentation, my documentation, with my name removed. That was fraud. They already locked both of their accounts before I walked in. Thomas told me Maya was suspended immediately pending further review. She was escorted out of the building that morning. Eric was terminated the same day. No warning. No meeting. No goodbye, email. His badge didn't work by lunchtime. He told me I could press further if I wanted, file a formal grievance, sue for credit theft, or even pursue legal damages. But I said no. I didn't want to drag it out. I just wanted it on record. That it was mine. that I built it, and that they lied. A week later, the company sent out a new internal newsletter. In it, Thomas personally named me as the project's lead developer. He described my work as foundational and a case study in personal accountability. He didn't mention Maya or Eric, but he didn't need to. Everyone knew. My Slack lit up. Messages from coworkers I hadn't heard from in months. Some apologized. Some just said, "I saw." One person sent me a single emoji, a USB drive. The best part wasn't the praise. It was watching the fear go quiet. All the fake smiles, all the fake meetings, the cold shoulders, gone. I got offered a new role, senior developer. I'd have my own small team. They let me choose the people. I picked two folks I trusted and one junior who reminded me of me a few years back, quiet, steady, overlooked. I didn't talk about it much after that. Maya tried to reach out through LinkedIn months later. No message, just a connection request. I ignored it. Eric disappeared from everything. His GitHub went private. His name stopped showing up in job threads. Someone said he moved cities. I don't know. I kept the flash drive. Still have it. Actually, it sits in my drawer. I don't need it anymore. But I like knowing it's there. Proof that the quiet one wasn't so quiet after all. Proof that I fought back. And this time they listened.